Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty major. A really unexpected and, frankly, dramatic foreign policy shift from President Trump.
Yes, specifically regarding the war in Ukraine, announced right in the middle of the UN General Assembly.
It really is a huge story
Yeah.
because, for months the signals were all pointing one way.
Exactly. For you, the listener, the landscape seems set. The assumption, based on, well, lots of hints and statements, was that U.S. policy was pushing Kyiv towards giving up some territory.
Right, some kind of concession to end the fighting. That was the baseline we were all working from.
We were talking about ceasefires, maybe managed withdrawals, complex land swaps.
And then, bam, September 23rd, 2025. That whole narrative just gets thrown completely out the window.
In a single afternoon, yeah. We went from talk of compromise to this really explicit, very public call for total Ukrainian victory.
Getting back every inch of lost land.
So what we need to do is figure out how this happened, why the language suddenly got so aggressive towards Moscow, and, what does this actually mean for Russia, for Europe?
And the way it came out is interesting, too. Not some formal address, but kind of emerging from a chaotic speech and then a social media post.
Let's start with the speech itself, the UN General Assembly. High profile.
And right off the bat, apparently there was a technical issue. The teleprompter malfunctioned.
That's what sources are saying. It malfunctioned early on, and he apparently ditched the script, said he was speaking more from the heart.
And speaking from the heart seemed to mean launching some broadsides.
Oh, definitely. It really set this incredibly confrontational tone, even before Ukraine came up specifically. He wasn't really doing diplomacy. He was picking fights.
Okay, like who?
Well, European allies, for one, right out there, criticizing them pretty harshly for still buying Russian energy.
He called it embarrassing.
Embarrassing, yeah, and told them to immediately cease, basically arguing that buying Russian energy cancels out any effort to stop Russia.
Okay, that's direct. But did it stop there?
Not at all. It broadened out quickly.
Yeah.
He pivoted to attacking climate change policies, called it the greatest con job ever.
Wow. At the UN General Assembly.
Warned leaders that they needed to reject this green scam or their countries would fail. It felt quite disconnected from the immediate war context, but part of this wider attack.
And the UN itself wasn't safe either.
Nope. He questioned its whole purpose, really. Pointed out he'd supposedly ended 7 wars without any UN help.
No phone calls, no assistance, undermining the multilateral idea.
That's the theme. And he hit global immigration policies, too. Said the fabric of the West was being destroyed.
And accused the UN of what? Funding an assault?
Funding an assault on Western countries through weak border policies, essentially. So you have this backdrop of just general intense criticism of global norms and institutions.
Okay, so that's the scene. Chaos, confrontation, and then out of that comes the Ukraine pivot.
Right, during his private meeting with President Zelensky, which happened on the sidelines there.
Let's talk about how big a pivot this really was. What was the position, say, last month?
The guidance last month was very different. It was grounded in, well, realpolitik. Trump had suggested Ukraine would need to talk about possible exchanges of territory.
Taking into account the current line of contact.
Exactly, which includes, big areas in the Donbass, the south, currently held by Russia, so that old position implied compromise was necessary. Concessions were on the table.
Okay, so that was then. And the new position arrives how? Not a State Department memo.
No, not at all. It comes via a Truth Social post. Lengthy one, too. Dropped at 2:55 p.m. Eastern Time that Monday.
A major foreign policy shift announced on social media. Does that change how we should view it? Does it make it seem less official or more direct, maybe?
That's a really good question. It definitely bypasses the usual channels, makes it raw, unfiltered. Maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
But the message itself couldn't be clearer.
What did it actually say?
He stated, and this is a direct quote, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form."
Win all of Ukraine back in its original form. That leaves zero room for negotiation on territory, does it?
None. It's a flat rejection of land swaps. But then he pushes it even further. This is the really striking part.
Why?
He's just, Ukraine could get its original borders back, and who knows, maybe even go further than that.
Wait, further than that? What does that even mean? Further than the original borders?
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It's incredibly escalatory. It moves beyond just defending recognized Ukrainian land. It hints maybe at U.S. blessing for actions inside Russia, or perhaps into territory Russia held even before 2014, like Crimea.
That's a massive change in potential war aims, at least rhetorically.
A huge leap, strategically. And it wasn't just about Ukraine's potential gains. He went hard after Russia's image, too.
How so?
In that same post, he called the Russian military a paper tiger.
Okay, paper tiger, that's not subtle.
Not subtle at all. It's designed to undermine Russia's global military standing, make them look weak, unreliable to their own allies. He even said Russia was fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win.
So, portraying Russia as incompetent, basically, and weak. Contemptuously weak, yes. And he linked it to their economy, too, saying Russia's facing big economic trouble, almost like urging Ukraine, hit them now while they're down.
It sounds like a very deliberate, coordinated message. Russia is weak militarily, weak economically. Ukraine should go for the win.
And it wasn't just the post. In the meeting with Zelensky, the rhetoric about NATO got sharper, too.
Oh, what happened there?
Reporters asked him directly if NATO countries should shoot down Russian planes that enter their airspace.
That's a big step beyond current rules of engagement.
And his answer:
A simple, yes, I do.
wow. Okay, that signals a willingness for direct NATO-Russia confrontation in certain situations. Many allies would be very nervous about that.
Extremely hesitant, yes. It suggests a tolerance for risk, for potential kinetic conflict that goes way beyond previous administrations' policies, which always prioritized avoiding direct clashes.
So how did Kyiv react to all this? To the post, the rhetoric?
Predictably, very positively. Zelensky almost immediately called the post a big shift and very positive.
He seemed quite happy about it.
Extremely. He called Trump a game changer. And interestingly, he thanked Trump for, as he put it, understanding the battlefield better now. Said Trump knows more details than before.
Implying that maybe their briefings, their efforts to show Russian weakness are finally hitting home at the top.
That seems to be Kyiv's interpretation, yes, that the message got through. And Ukrainian advocacy groups were just as quick to praise it, called it the strongest support for Ukraine's territorial integrity they'd seen from him.
Okay, so we have this massive shift. It comes out in this sort of chaotic, unconventional way. But is it real policy? Or is it just, a tactic, a bluff?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, according to one senior administration official who spoke to reporters, the stated goal is tactical. It's about applying maximum public pressure on Russia to get them to the table for a deal.
Ah, so it is about getting a deal. It's a negotiating posture. Agree now or face total defeat, maybe worse.
That seems to be the official line explaining the strategy.
But that's a risky game, isn't it? What if Russia doesn't believe the threat? What if they call the bluff? Especially further than that part, is the U.S. actually prepared to back that up?
That's precisely the risk.
Yeah.
The tension at the core of it. But there's another piece here that maybe makes the threat more credible.
Which is?
Western officials, according to reports, were actually encouraged by this new stance. Not just because Trump wasn't blaming Kyiv or forcing concessions,
Okay.
but because they apparently agree with the underlying assessment. They concur that Russia has been weaker than anyone thought.
Ah, okay. So it's not just Trump saying Russia is weak. There's a consensus building, or maybe already there, among Western planners?
It seems that way. That shared assessment makes the threat, the total victory threat, seem more militarily plausible, which, in turn, makes the pressure on Moscow to negotiate now much more real.
So it's a high-stakes bet, but one based on a potentially revised shared intelligence picture of Russian capability?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests this isn't just a random outburst on social media, but maybe a calculated pivot, timed because they believe Russia's ability to resist is genuinely fading.
And it completely flips the script on that 20% of Ukrainian territory Russia holds. The assumption was the U.S. might eventually have to accept that reality.
That assumption is gone. Shattered.
Okay, so let's summarize the key takeaway here for you listening. That baseline assumption that the U.S. would eventually nudge Ukraine towards trading land for peace.
Totally reversed.
It's been replaced by this very public, very aggressive endorsement of Ukraine winning everything back, all occupied territory. That's the new reality we're dealing with.
And if you think about the bigger picture implications, this wasn't just a message for Ukraine or Russia. Delivering this at the UN sends a global signal. It changes the risk calculation for everyone.
How so?
Well, the big question now is how Putin reads this. Does he see this very public, very blunt ultimatum as the prelude to an even bigger escalation from the West, forcing him to double down? Or does he see it as maybe the last chance, a final off-ramp to negotiate something before potentially facing even greater losses, especially now that the U.S. is openly saying go further?
knowing that the diplomatic cover for holding on to that conquered land seems to have vanished, at least from the U.S. perspective.
Precisely. It's a huge gamble, and the next few months will be critical.
A really fascinating and, frankly, quite concerning turn of events. Okay, if you found this conversation helpful in understanding the strategic shift and what it might mean, we'd really appreciate it if you'd engage with us.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're on Spotify, a follow would be great. Thanks for exploring all this with us today.